Hello, kiddies. This is Alice Cooper. And may the rock be with you. And you better be listening because I know where you live.
Shortly. But of course, Alice, welcome back to May the Rock Be With You. It's been about 3.5 years since we last chatted. So,
Yes.
forgetting last year, let's catch up. How have the last 3.5 years been for you?
Really good. A lot of albums, a lot of, working with the Vampires and working with my album, being in two bands at 73 is amazing. I thought that I'd be slowing down, and I actually realized I got more energy now than I had when I was 30. So, all that sobriety is paying off, I think.
Yeah, well done. And of course, we're here because the new Alice Cooper album, Detroit Stories, hits in a couple of weeks. Tell us about the idea of why you wanted to honor Detroit this way.
Well, I was born in Detroit. That's my hometown. And I think it's in the DNA that when you're born there, you're a hard rocker. I mean, the first thing I remember about rock and roll was Chuck Berry, who was really the first one that introduced guitar as the lead instrument,
Yeah,
in a song. And he was also the greatest lyricist of all time. So, that was probably way deep down. That seed was buried down deep. And I moved from Detroit to Phoenix when I was a kid because I had asthma. I had to get out of that cold weather and put the band together in high school and ended up back in Detroit in 1970, with the band. And that's really where the band broke. I mean, that's where, we felt at home there because, we were in LA with the Doors and the Mothers and people like that. And they were great, but we didn't fit in. We just didn't fit in. And we didn't fit in San Francisco. We didn't fit in New York. We didn't fit in the South. But we got to Detroit, and all of a sudden there's Iggy and the Stooges and the MC5 and Bob Seger and Ted Nugent and Susie Quattro. And we were just like that missing finger in the glove,
yeah,
And then when they found out it was from Detroit, well, then I was the long lost son.
yeah. And in a really, really cool move, the album is all Detroit too. The sound, the musicians playing on it. What was that process like putting this together with people like Wayne Kramer and the likes?
Well, it was great, I mean, because we've known these people forever. I mean, Johnny B, I've known since he was in Mitch Ryder, and Wayne Kramer back in the 70s, with MC5. And, all those guys that are playing are still as good as they ever were, if not better. I think Wayne's playing better now than he did back then, and Johnny B is like the premier drummer in Detroit. He's the guy, the first person we thought it was Johnny B for drums.
Nice.
And of course, Neil Smith, then from the original band, played on some of the tracks also. The original band played on two or three tracks because I've included them in the last four albums.
Yeah.
I mean, they were from Detroit also. I mean, it was sort of, old home week there. But at the same time, we never quit working with each other. Even after we broke up, we still worked with each other.
That's so
So
good.
it wasn't a stretch, to call Dennis, Mike, and Neil and say, hey, let's put some songs together.
Yeah, put it down. And I love the pairing of you and Bob Ezrin. I mean, it's 50 years you've been doing this. What does he essentially make him almost like another member of your band?
Well, he's George Martin. He's our George Martin. What George Martin did with the Beatles is what he did with us. He heard a band that was really exciting and really great on stage and really good band, except that we didn't have a signature. It's like when you hear he'd say, when you hear the Doors, why do you know it's the Doors? They sound like the Doors.
Yeah,
When you hear the Stones, they sound like the Stones. Why is it that Alice Cooper, when you hear Alice Cooper, it could be anybody. It could be any psychedelic hard rock band because there's no signature. That's when we started working on Love It to Death. And after Love It to Death, then that was really the first Alice Cooper album.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that was the first one that had, that's Alice Cooper.
Yeah, right.
The sound of it.
And then once you get that sound and you think, well, I'm going to stick with this guy forever, basically.
Oh yeah. Well, Bob was, like you said, he was as much a member of the band as anybody.
Yeah.
And he was the one that could hear the stuff we couldn't hear. And he was the guy that could take a raw song like 18 and keep paring it down into it's a 3-minute song and powerful. We didn't understand that the simpler you made it, the more powerful it was.
Right.
We kept thinking you had to be the Yardbirds and make it really, complicated, just to prove how good we were, and the power really was in the simplicity. I mean, listen to the Beatles. Everything they do is so simple, and it's so powerful.
Yeah, I love it. Now, in a COVID world, what was the process like putting this album together compared to your entire back catalog, essentially?
The album was done before COVID.
Oh, really?
It was all done before anything really blew up. We
Yeah.
we were in Detroit. Nobody was wearing masks. We were just rocking and rolling, you know. Um, and then it started raising its ugly head.
Mm.
And what happened was at that point, then we couldn't really put the album out. So that's when we decided to put Breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs then became, you know, the middle between putting this album. I said, we're touring. We didn't know we were going to quit touring because of the pandemic, but we didn't see a moment where we could put that album out and promote it because we were touring all the time. And so I said, well, we'll have to hold it off, but let's give the audience, the Alice fans, a little taste of it. You know, we'll give them 6 songs that are pointing to Detroit, certainly, and call it Breadcrumbs. You know, like the old fairy tale where the little girl leaves the breadcrumbs so she can find her way back home. Well, this leads you to the album.
Nice lead in. Well, how do you foresee the future of recording now that with what we're doing?
Well, you know, first of all, I'm a very big optimist about this. I think in 6 months, everything's going to be way better than it is now. Well, I just think with the vaccine, I know in Phoenix, there's like 10,000 vaccinations a day. And I'm sure that Los Angeles and all the big cities are doing this. And by that time, I would say half the population will be vaccinated. You know, and then I think that you show your certificate, I've been vaccinated. Why couldn't you go to a concert?
Yeah.
You know, show your certificate and get on the show. There's nothing to fear. You know, everybody's covered.
Yeah, get on a plane and go somewhere, you know, travel.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, honestly, I think it's everybody's being very well, you know, let's not rush it, let's not this, but I'm more of a person that's looking at the reality. I think that we're going to have a really big resurgence of everything in the next 6 months.
I can't wait. I think it's going to be amazing. Now, I wanted to ask about a couple of songs on the album. One in particular was Our Love Will Change the World. And it's sort of like, can you tell us about the importance of a song like that now?
First of all, that song doesn't fit on the album at all.
No, I love it though.
And there should always be a song that doesn't fit at all on the album. And that song, it was a band called Outrageous Cherry that was a psychedelic punk band in the 80s or 90s in Detroit. And we were covering all the bases. We did a Motown song, you know, we did $1,000 high heel shoes. I wrote that as a Motown song, you know, and we treated it like one. Yeah, cool. There was a blues song on there with Joe Bonamassa, you know, on guitar, and me on harp, and, you know, Steve Hunter on guitar. So we covered all the Detroit bases. And then this song comes along and I heard it and I could not get it out of my head, you know, and then I started thinking about this song and I went, this is the happiest song. And the lyrics are totally subversive. Yeah. The lyrics are talking about the next generation telling us to get out of the way because they're going to change the world. And don't worry, you'll get used to it. You know, it'll be strange at first, but you'll get used to it. And in other words, very matter of fact, children of the dam telling us, you know, to move over. And I said, that's a very funny thought because it's really Alice's sense of humor, you know, a dark lyric against a really happy song. Yep. And Bob and I loved it. Actually, all the vocals on that is myself, my son, my 2 daughters, and my wife.
Oh, wow.
They're all better singers than I am. So, you know, they did all of the background singing and all of this, and we did all of that here at the house.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. Last year, obviously, what a doozy that was. So what, if anything, did 2020 teach you that you will now maintain throughout your life?
Well, for one thing is, you know, we tour constantly. 2/3 of the year we're on the road, either with the Vampires or with my band. And you get into a rhythm of the road. You get into a rhythm of how to live on the road. You know, you eat at a certain time, you take a nap at a certain time, you go shopping at a certain time, you play golf in the morning, you know, but then the show is the most important thing that night. Now, when you take a year off and that show isn't happening that night, you're deflating the balloon a little bit because you're sitting there going, oh yeah, but where's the show? That's the most fun part of the day. And you get addicted to it.
Yep.
And especially our show. I mean, everybody in the band, they look at that as being the most fun time of the day, is being in that show, you
Yeah.
know. And so you do have to come off of it a little bit. It's like a drug. It's like you have to wean yourself off of it and just kind of, well, then what else are we going to do?
Yeah.
Go to the movies. Let's go to the movies. Let's watch Netflix. Let's do this. Well, that's nice for a while, but you still are yearning to get back up on stage.
Yep. I mean, it's not like you can take your guillotine for a walk down the street or anything, can you?
Yeah, hey, really. Well, the great thing about it, for musicians at least, and maybe for actors or writers, is that you have all this time to write.
Mm.
You can write songs, you can demo songs. Every band I know, every guy I know in every band has got a studio at home.
Yeah.
And you can sit there and write songs, demo them, and have 35 songs ready to go when the band meets again. And now every guy in the band's got 20 songs.
Yeah.
Hopefully not the drummer, but
So have we got to go?
But I called Johnny, and he was on his island, I think, somewhere. And I said, how you doing? And he said, I'm doing great. He said, I'm doing great. I'm writing a lot of songs. He says, really nothing to do here except write songs. And so he says, when we get back together in the studio, Joe is going to have songs, I'm going to have songs, and Johnny's going to have songs. We'll go in and probably record immediately.
Excellent. So you've got a bit of a stockpile. We're expecting something maybe sooner rather than later.
Well, this album's not even out yet, and we're already working on the next album.
Nice.
Because we're not going to sit around just doing nothing. So we're stockpiling a lot of songs, and then deciding once you have all those songs, you can start thinking, okay, what is the concept on this going to be? Then you can start taking those songs and shaping them into what the concept is going to be. That's happened with the Detroit album. We didn't really have a concept for the Detroit album. We just said, let's do 12 great rock and roll songs. And that took us to, well, let's go to where rock and roll is really king, inspiration. And then we went, well, why don't we record it here? Why don't we use all Detroit players? Now it became a concept. All of a sudden it took form,
Yeah, awesome. Now, lastly, what I do with everyone else, we've done this before. I want you to look ahead to the future a little bit for me, because that's all we can do now. Finish this sentence for me with a prediction. In 2021, Alice Cooper will
be on 2 tours, promoting 2 albums, and be tireless. I cannot wait to get back on the road. I start on the tour, and when you're doing that show 2 hours a night, it's an aerobic. And pretty much by the end of that tour, I'm in great shape. I mean, I don't smoke, I don't drink. I haven't had a drink in 38 years. I don't take drugs. I'm happily married. So I get off the tour, I mean, in like an athlete shape, because every night I'm doing that show and everything's in good shape. I think one of the great things about it is the fact that everybody in my band, Nita Strauss, Hurricane Nita, and Ryan Roxy, and everybody are all best friends.
Yeah.
There's never an ego trip going on. There's never a stress going on backstage. It's all they can't wait to get on stage. Same with the Vampires. We've been together 7 years. There's never been an argument between Johnny, Joe, or myself. Never been an argument ever, because we just go, oh, that's a good idea. Let's try it.
Yeah. You can see that with your band, though. Like, I've seen your show every time you come to Australia, and your band has always been, regardless of members, phenomenal. Like they look like they're having more fun than we are.
And I surround myself with the best players. I make sure that they're not just the best players, but they understand what we're doing up there. And they also are people I could hang out with for a month somewhere. If I was stranded on an island, could I hang out with these people? Absolutely. They're people I really, really like,
nice. As long as they bring their instruments.
Yeah, yeah. Or we'd have to, like Gilligan's Island, we'd have to make them out of coconuts or something. Hey, can't wait to get over there, man. We love it over there.
I know. It's like a second home for you guys. So I really hope you can get back soon.
We counted it up the other day. I've been there 13 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I never knew that. I never really thought of that, but 13 times. Yeah.
Well, I look forward to 14 and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Thank you, Alice. I appreciate it.
Safe.
See you again. Bye.